Black Friday, the Dow tumbles 900 points for the worst day of the year. 10-year making big moves. Gold back below 1800. Oil was down some 12% yesterday. Omicron, that's what I'm calling the new variant. An opportunity to buy the dip. We'll talk about it with my co-host, Mr. Nick Hodge. I am Gerardo Del Real, and this is episode 145 of Bizarro World, live from the field. Mr. Nick Hodge, how are you, sir?
I love that you call it the field, Gerardo. I am in a hotel room overlooking the Pacific Ocean and some pools here in Hawaii. I haven't done any site visits to speak of yet, but maybe I'll leave the resort before the week is up. I had to tune in, though, because of what you called Black Friday. I knew it was going to quickly get a moniker. And so we'll talk about it. But yes, I'm by the dip moment to answer your question. I'm doing great. How are you doing? How was Thanksgiving?
I am well. Thanksgiving was phenomenal. Great company, great food, great drinks. Everybody's healthy. A lot to be thankful for. Firing on all cylinders. Happy that, the week went the way that it went. I think it's an interesting end to the week as far as the markets go, and we'll get into that in just a second. But yeah, no. It was fantastic. I hope everyone out there had an excellent holiday, and to my friends in Canada, I hope that y'all just had a great week in general, right?
Well, they all got their news releases out yesterday afternoon, I saw.
Yes, sir. Let's get right into it. Look, I feel like gold, I feel like I should be giving gold like 20s and singles, right? Because it's being a little tease every single time it makes a move higher. And I think a breakout might be in the cards. We get the pullback below 1800. Gold closed at 1785 today. The dollar index is still above 96. We had the move to 1850 here earlier in the week. That proved to not be sustainable for now. Gold got as high as 1867. So, not prime time for gold yet, but thoughts on the move, Nick? I know it was on pretty good volume. I know the reversal was, pretty decisive. Is this kind of the new floor? It's kind of what it looks like to me. These levels seem to be the new floor. Is it all upside from here, or do you think we have another breakdown?
You're talking about gold specifically.
Yes, sir.
Some of the better names have moved very well. Like when I woke up this morning and I saw what was happening in the markets, I looked, as I always do, to see what I could buy on sale. And you couldn't buy like some of the quality gold column explorers and developers if you want. I'm thinking specifically of like a Great Bear, for example, which has been going up like very nicely. I've been wanting to buy some and I missed my little window there. I thought I was going to have a bit more time. And so is it a new floor? I'm not sure. Is it time for gold to break out? I'm not sure about that either. You saw significant weakness in everything, but you saw a big pullback in the dollar today. The VIX didn't convince me that this is the end of the bull market for stocks. And so, I continue to approach gold as I've been approaching gold, right? Like pecking away at the Newmonts and the Kinrosses, and as I just said, the Great Bears of the world, but not getting much more opportunity, even when there's a downside in a lot of other equities and securities in the broader market. And so I think that answers your question.
Absolutely. And I guess a better question is, does it matter, right? I guess the statement to be made is use these pullbacks and use these dips to add into positions that maybe you feel you missed out on, like your Great Bear example. And I think this week has provided that. Let's talk. We have to talk about this variant, right? The Dow was down, 1,000 points at its worst point today, ended up closing down 905 points. The S&P 500 dropped 2%. Copper's back down to 433. And, I can't help but just think to myself, we've seen this fear of new variants before. And every single time there's a pullback, it ends up turning out to be an opportunity, whether it's in the copper names, whether it's in the 10-year treasury, whether it's in the S&P, the Dow, the NASDAQ, whatever it may be. So less of a question than a statement. I think this pullback is an absolute gift on all fronts. I think, there's a good case to be made that the hype, which again, not to minimize the potential seriousness of this new variant that's been detected in South Africa, not to minimize that obviously can prove very consequential. But I think we know how this ends, right? We've seen this play out. And the way I've seen it play out is if there are countries and regions that are going to lock down, and we're already starting to see it, then we know what comes behind that and after that. And what comes after that is mass stimulus, right? So either way, you're either going to close down shop and go give people money that you're going to print a la counterfeiting, and then the market's going to continue higher, or you're not. And, we're going to deal with this the way that we've dealt with everything else here the past several months, trying to get a vaccine or something to treat this new variant. So I'd love to get your thoughts on Omicron, as I'm calling it.
I think you said all of that very well. Look, we didn't even get a changing of Jerome, right? You got Jerome keeping his job, which is, something that you and I talked about in recent episodes. So, you're going to get more of the same on that front, right? And if this guy is the hawkish guy, or the guy that's going to rein it in, I don't really see that happening. And so you sort of know what you're going to get with Mr. Powell. The variants, I would say exactly the same. Like we were due for a new variant. You can sort of chart that stuff now. This has been going on for almost 2 years, right? We're heading into December here, which is when the first cases showed up in the U.S. 2 years ago, and you can sort of see the waves of the variants come. And to your point, you can reflect on how the markets acted every time there was a new wave and a spike in cases detected. And so, last week I was saying there was a very real spike in cases, and that was real before we knew that there was a variant. And so, or a new variant, I should say. And so, no, look, I think that some of the travel related names sold off harder than others. But when I looked around today, I didn't see a lot of carnage elsewhere, right? I didn't, see a lot of deep value. And again, I didn't see a lot of fear in the VIX. And so I think you use this as opportunity, just like you were saying, to continue to get positioned, to build positions, to reposition. And I guess I'd mentioned oil as well, right? Because you had, I don't even know what day it is, Gerardo, but a couple of days ago.
It was down 13% today, right? That seemed like an opportunity.
Right. But I guess what I was going to say is it didn't go down when they were going to release oil from the strategic reserve, right? So you had deliberate policy actions saying, look, we're going to put more oil in the market, where, if markets are driven by supply and demand, and you say, look, we're going to put more supply on, and the price didn't go down, that sort of tells you that, this is inflation driven and the fundamentals are sort of out the window. And so I don't think this variant is going to, grind travel to a halt. And so in that respect, I think oil continues higher, and I'm just using that as, one asset class to look at. You literally can't manipulate it lower. It's trading on the machinations of a market.
Well said. And again, a heck of a buying opportunity if that is the way it plays out. Down 13% today. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Look, the UK has temporarily suspended flights from 6 African countries due to the variant, right? Israel has barred travel to several countries after one case. 2 cases have been identified in Hong Kong, and Belgium also has confirmed a case. Here at home, the U.S. has restricted travel from South Africa and 7 other countries. So clearly the powers that be, for whatever reason, and we know there's always a power grab to be had, right? Are using this as an opportunity to further whatever their agenda they were already predisposed to further, right? They're using this potentially more contagious variant as that excuse. But again, just kind of game theorizing this and looking forward, we know the end game. We know what the response is going to be. So either there's more stimulus and this becomes the excuse to not taper as quickly or not raise rates as quickly, or this will pass. And so either way, I find that extremely bullish for oil, extremely bullish for copper, extremely bullish for the major US indices. A lot to like out there. Now is a great time if you keep a nice, tidy little cash position on the side. These are the days, as Keith McCullough from Hedge Eye would say, these weren't the days to not do anything, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was in there buying this morning. I was tweeting about it, bought some oil stocks, bought some weed stocks, bought a little bit of crypto stuff. And so we haven't mentioned crypto yet, but significant buying opportunity there. And yeah, look, either we're all going to die of COVID or we're going to get a new... we're gonna get a new jab for it, right? We're gonna get a new. The words escaping me, Gerardo. I've been on vacation too long, but you're gonna get a new, supplemental jab for whatever variant it is, which is sort of what I said when I first got vaccine. Right? We were saying that every 6 months people were gonna have to get a
booster, yeah,
a booster, yeah. And I was saying, well, you might want to wait until. There's a really nasty variant because they'll make a booster for that variant. And so I don't want to sound blasé about it. Of course, it's serious, loss of life, etc. But at the same time, I don't think this is going to be what roils markets. I don't think it's going to be the variant that does us in. And I think that we've got a lot of education and time under our belts now as far as how to deal with these things. And so don't want to belabor the point, but opportunity out there in the markets for sure.
Agreed. And as usual, we're going to put our money where our mouth is. I love the pullback in cryptos, right? I specifically didn't mention it because I wanted to touch on it here separately. Bitcoin's down to 54, Ethereum's down to 4,000. Chris Curl, who was a guest a couple of weeks ago, he's about to launch his service here at the end of the month that is crypto focused. And you and I are handing over 50 grand, putting it into an account and letting him do what he does best, right? And so again, for those of you out there, this isn't a theory for us. This isn't something that we look at and just write about. We are in the markets. We put our money where our mouths are. We vote with our dollar. And so in this case, I'm hoping that Mr. Curl is able to duplicate even half of the spectacular gains he's been able to provide for himself. Again, this is a gentleman that made 75 times his money in a very, very short period of time. So let's see where that goes. It'll be transparent as everything is. You'll be able to follow what he's purchasing. I hope all of you have the opportunity to subscribe to that service. I think it's going to be educational and I think it's going to be extremely profitable. This pullback is a thing of beauty. The timing could not be better.
I was going to say, I think the timing is going to turn out to be very fortunate, very serendipitous. We don't control that, of course, but we're itching to get started any day. And so, as you said, we're putting our money where our mouth is. All the paperwork is in to get these accounts open with these exchanges, Coinbase and Kraken. And as you well know, we've had to, resubmit a couple of things, whatever it is, dot our I's and cross our T's. And, Chris has been asking me, he was texting me today, in fact, are these accounts open yet? Because he's ready to get started. He's obviously bullish on cryptos, thinks that, 53,000 on Bitcoin is a heck of an entry point, and was talking to me about other altcoins and even some I'm just going to read his quotes verbatim so you guys get a sense of what he's talking about. But even like He's talking about some altcoins that are solid DeFi projects that are on a heavy discount right now. And he's even talking about deploying a little bit of money into decentralized finance projects that are involved in NFTs. And so he was sending me pictures. I'm sure you've seen the monkeys or the apes or whatever by now. And of course, we talked about the rocks a little bit ago, but these are sort of like, what would I say? They're like Darth Vader looking things with different color helmets and horns and things. And so, space bounty hunter NFTs, they're called. And so, he's talking about all the different things that you can buy while they're on sale. And, of course, we're just waiting for those accounts to get started. And yeah, again, it's funny. It's a bit humorous, but again, that plays into part of it, right? Because, I guess we'll mention Elon's balls again for the third week in a row, but
Elon's balls are hot on the street right now.
That's it. They're like, sweaty balls back in the day. Can't get enough of them. And so, we're ready for these accounts to get started. And hopefully this, whatever, Black Friday, Thanksgiving off week, or whatever it turns out to be, the buying opportunity, we think it is, because, again, we're still looking for 6-digit Bitcoin prices in 2022, and that means at least $100,000. So, ready to get started for sure.
I gotta say, I am not a fan of the Darth Vader fucking avatars, because all the pretty crypto babes have now changed their profile pictures to these stupid fucking monkey mask. I miss you, pretty crypto babes. Change it back. I hope that's a passing fad.
You need to come up with the crypto babe NFT, Gerardo.
I have to ask Chris how to make that work. Let's switch gears a little bit. Last week we talked about Kyle Rittenhouse and the not guilty verdict. We got into that pretty in depth. I don't want to do a deep dive into the big case this week, but I do want to touch on it here just a bit. Of course, I'm talking about Mr. Ahmaud Arbery, who was lynched. Let's just be absolutely clear. This was, a modern day lynching with a shotgun. And so for those of you that aren't familiar with the case, there was a black man jogging in a neighborhood, and 3 white men chased him and, in their words, trapped him like a rat, yelled, "Stop or I'll blow your fucking head off." And the video, for those of you that haven't watched it, it's widely available. I won't put a link up to it because it's always disheartening, obviously, to see a human being lose their life in such a heinous way, with such callous and malice. But, for those of you that want to see just what that was and what that looked like, these 3 men jumped in a truck and followed this man. And, just blew him up. They caught up to him. All 3. I can't even describe it because it's just ugly, right? It's nasty. You can read the article. I'll put the link up. All 3 of the people in that video were found guilty. When these 3 men spoke to police, they were very honest about that. The guy, these are their words. "I don't think the guy has actually stolen anything out of there, or if he did, it was early in the process. But he keeps going back over and over again to this damn house," is what they said. And, this gentleman lived in this area. This gentleman wasn't doing anything wrong. This gentleman hadn't committed a crime. This gentleman did absolutely nothing wrong but go for a jog. I'm glad they were found guilty. All 3 of them were found guilty of murder. I want to highlight the fact that despite there being video of this, despite there being overwhelming evidence that this was a lynching via shotgun, they weren't initially charged. It's beyond me how in 2021, 3 men can chase down a human being, kill him, tell police they didn't think he was doing anything wrong, and they just didn't like that he was in the neighborhood, admit to killing him, released the video of them killing him in the way that they did, and how a prosecutor could take all of that and not charge these gentlemen, these assholes, I shouldn't call them gentlemen, these assholes, for as long as they weren't charged, is appalling to me, And so, I'm glad they were found guilty. I'd love, your take briefly here, Nick, on that. I know that you got, sugary drinks to get back to and palm trees and beaches. So I don't want to belabor the point too long, but yeah, glad they were found guilty. Very, very, very disheartening that it took the kind of outrage that these people weren't charged in the first place to get even a charge, to even get it to the court. And good on the jury for seeing through it, right?
You hit all the key points. It's obviously important to talk about. And so, especially coming off the Kyle Rittenhouse last week. And so you obviously have to talk about it through those glasses or through that frame of reference. So I'll just talk off the cuff because you and I are familiar with this case. We talked about it when it first happened. And, that's often the curse of the podcast and the newsletter writer, right? We're familiar with this stuff and we talk about it. And then when it actually makes its way to the news, where we don't want to talk about it because we've been there and done that. And so anyway, it's obviously deserving to be talked about. So the first things I thought were the justice system still works to at least some extent once there's finally enough pressure applied, right? And so we talked about how the verdict in the Rittenhouse jury is twisted as that whole story and saga was, right? How he got the gun, the traveling across state lines, that he still had a right to defend himself. And that's likely how the jury was going to conclude. And they did. And in this case, clearly Mr. Arbery was chased down and gunned down and murdered. And that's how the jury saw it as well. So, although you don't want to have to see it, I was glad to see it come out that way. I would echo your sentiments, not only in the 3 months that it took once the video was out there to get some charges, but also in the language, the initial let's call him whatever, public prosecutor or whatever, the language he used when dismissing it. I don't have it in front of me, and excuse me for not preparing, but I'm pretty sure he referred to him as Mr. Arbery as a criminal, and if not, a suspect. And so he was saying that the three guys acted with in their rights to pursue him, and that's why he wasn't pursuing criminal charges against them originally. And so that's sort of the bias and or racism, or just call it inertia of the current system, right? White privilege, if you want to take it that far. And so the next thing I thought was, I was imagining if Mr. Rittenhouse were black, and I think we might have mentioned this in the podcast last week. Like, do you think
they would have lit his ass up?
Exactly right. Do you think he would have been treated the same way? And so obviously there's still a lot of way to go. I think a lot of people have said that this week, but the jury got this one right. And again, you said it well. So for three guys to have the audacity to do that, right? To think that it was in their sphere of whatever rights or their sphere of liberty to pursue this guy and kill him is a testament to, how much work there still is to be done. And so, like you say, I'm not sure what else to add except to say, you got a video of this out there on the internet, and it takes 3 months to get something done about it. So think about that.
Yeah, let me add this too, because I think this point is important, and it's one that I actually wanted to start with. I don't think it's a coincidence that the district attorney that failed to pursue charges, Jackie Johnson, actually used to employ one of the killers, right? And so Gregory McMichael, who's 64 years old, was a Glenn County Police Department officer from 82 to 89. And he was also an investigator for the Brunswick Judicial Circuit DA's office. And so the other guy, Travis McMichael, his son, was a former U.S. Coast Guard mechanic between 2007 and 2016, also with law enforcement training. And the third guy, William Bryan, who was 50 years old, was a neighbor of the father and son. I'm glad that District Attorney Jackie Johnson was indicted for showing favor and affection, is what the indictment was, during the investigation, and also for obstructing law enforcement by directing that Travis McMichaels not be arrested. Think about that. Think about being a black man, a black person, a disenfranchised person, low-income white, whatever it is, someone that doesn't have the pool in America, that doesn't have the network to be able to get just fair treatment. Think about just going out for a jog and having to worry that like this can happen. And then think about having to worry not only that this can happen, but that even if it's videoed, even if it's, these guys recorded this thing on the fucking cell phone and turned it over thinking it would give them a pass, right? For that to not be enough for an indictment, I'm glad the feds got involved. I'm glad the district attorney was charged. But again, the favoritism within the law enforcement community to protect their own, if this doesn't highlight that, then I don't know what will. And it has to change. Then we always talk about, the institution that allows for something like this to occur, not just the murder, the lack of charges after the murder. And if it wasn't for video, again, 30 years ago, this would have just been another black kid shot in the middle of the street. And nothing would have happened. There would have been no case. There wouldn't have been outrage. There would have been nothing to be outraged about. And it would have just been some sleepy little town, in Georgia, where everybody knows what it is. Nobody really talks about it, but you'd have, one dead black kid that essentially got lynched with a shotgun, right? So, yeah, glad the jury got it right. I hope that Brunswick District Attorney Jackie Johnson has everything that district attorney deserves coming. And I'll leave that there.
And probably, worth pointing out the Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman case as well, because it's similar sentiments, right? And that was 10 years ago, or at least 9 years ago. And so where Mr. Zimmerman pursued that boy that was just walking through the neighborhood, and the boy fought back because he was being attacked
by a grown man.
By someone who followed him through the neighborhood, and then he lost his life for that. And so Mr. Arbery fought back as well. It was documented in this case that, he had control of the shotgun, and they shot him because they did fear for their lives once he retaliated, which of course he was well within his right to do because he was being pursued and in fear for his life. And I just wonder how that's different from Trayvon Martin. And the answer is it's not. Exactly.
Yeah. Good on the jury for getting this one correct. Mr. Hodge, you got a beach to get back to. Carnage in the markets today. There were a lot of things that sold off. You were buying. Obviously, I will be looking on Monday for bargains. I will highlight before we leave, the uranium stocks have seen a nice little pullback here in the last week or two. Again, we've talked about how these cycles tend to work in these markets. You get big moves higher, then you get 20, 30, 40% pullbacks before new moves higher. So you can bet you're behind off that I will be adding to the better uranium names, both personally and in the portfolio for the trading service and for Junior Resource Monthly. Anything else to add to that, Mr. Hodge?
No, I did the same. I neglected to say I bought some Denison as well this morning, and we'll see next week. This was an irrational holiday-driven week, and so people will be at their desks next week looking to wrap up for the year, positioned for the new year ahead. And I believe we'll have a different attitude than you saw in the markets on the day after Thanksgiving. And all my trips will be behind me. And you already mentioned the crypto service, but we got some commodity super cycle stuff to put out here at the end of the year as well. And I'm just excited to get back to it. I think that markets and timing are in our favor on multiple fronts. And I'm looking forward to get into the end of the year with the holiday and start a brand new one here. So we'll see you again in a couple of days.
It's going to be a phenomenal end to the year. And my God, is 2022 going to be a blast. I am Gerardo Del Real, along with Mr. Nick Hodge. This was episode 145 of Bizarro World. You guys take care out there. Be safe.
Mahalo.